Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Mind Movement Health Podcast. I'm your host, Kate Boyle, and before we dive into this week's episode, just a shout out to our sponsor, Paleo Valley. If you've been looking to increase your health and want a little bit of support, then look no further than Paleo Valley. From supplements to foods, they are all organic and amazing products to support your health. I myself take their electrolytes, their vitamin C, their protein powder. I love the vanilla flavor, and I love having these options to be able to add healthy choices into my regular day-to-day nutrition. Now, this week on the podcast, we are chatting about when did we stop having fun? I want to start today's episode with a question. When was the last time you did something to simply smile? Not because it was productive or it was good for your career or it ticked a box, just because it brought you joy. Maybe it was dancing, painting, buying yourself flowers, laughing with a friend, or maybe you can't remember. And I think that's something worth talking about, because somewhere between building careers, raising children, caring for parents, paying mortgages, keeping the house running, many of us quietly stopped doing the very things that made us feel alive. We stopped playing, exploring, creating, resting. I know that's one thing that I definitely stopped doing. We stopped saying yes to adventure because we were tired. I was tired. And we became really good at surviving, at ticking things off our list, at just getting the things done. And here's what's fascinating. Science is beginning to show that many of these things that we think of as extras are actually essential ingredients for a healthy, long life. Today, I want to explore why we stop chasing these things, what they're doing for our brains and bodies, and how we can gently welcome them back into our lives. Because maybe our health isn't about adding more things in, it's about remembering what we've forgotten. And I've been reflecting on this lately because I realized that some of my happiest memories weren't attached to achievements. They were attached more to experiences. The dance classes I did when I was younger, I gave them up probably around the age of 28 when I went overseas. And then I got back and we had a mortgage, we're getting married, and then we had kids. And you know what it's like when you've got little kids, it feels like you have no time at all. And I've only gone back to dance in the last couple of years. And it gives me so much joy that I think, why did I give it up for 12 years? Why was I not making time for just 1 hour a week to go back to this? Things like running along the beach, going on holidays. For me, hosting retreats, sitting around a table with friends. All of these things, they made me wonder, when did we stop making time and space for these moments? And when did our health become something that we only associated with our workouts and our nutrition, instead of including joy, adventure, creativity, and connection? And I know for myself, as I said before, I was tired. By the time you got through a day of looking after kids, working, doing all the household chores, ticking everything off the list, it didn't feel like I had any energy left to do anything else. And then it became almost a feeling of it would be indulgent if I did any of these things, because I'm a mum and I've got responsibilities. And if I have still got work to do and I don't do that work and I take time out to rest or read a book, then I'm slacking off. I'm not doing what I should be doing. And so I've had to change my mindset around that. But I'm sure I'm not the only one. I'm sure you guys can relate to that too. And when we're in the midst of this, trading our joy for our productivity, which doesn't happen overnight, it's gradual. As I said, when we were kids, we climbed trees, we danced around the lounge room, we'd go out and ride our bike for hours and even take our rollerblades. So recently we went rollerblading or roller skating at a roller rink for my daughter's 13th birthday. And me and my husband were better rollerbladers than the kids that we took because we spent so many hours doing that as kids. Then we grow up and life gets busy. Maybe it's studying, then it's into full-time jobs, responsibilities grow. We get rewarded for productivity rather than the curiosity. And we measure our worth by how busy we are. That was me. 100%. I would measure my worth by how busy I was. And somewhere along the way, we start believing things like, I'll read when I retire. I'll travel one day. I'll catch up with friends when life settles down or the kids get older. I'll join that class when my kids don't need me as much anymore. But life rarely settles down. Your kids need you at every age, just in different ways. And before you know it, years have passed. And for me, it was 12 years between dance classes. Now, we are designed for more than just being productive. Our brains aren't designed to just simply work. They're designed to learn, explore, create, connect, rest, and play. These aren't luxuries, they're biological needs. And when we neglect them, our well-being suffers as well. Now, I want to chat about the science behind play because one of my favorite researchers, Dr. Stuart Brown, has spent decades studying play. He found that play isn't just something children use, adults need it too. Play helps improve creativity, problem solving, relationships. It helps your stress resilience, your emotional regulation, and interestingly, adults who maintain playfulness tend to be happier and more resilient. Play doesn't have to just mean board games. It could be dancing in your kitchen, gardening, learning poetry, surfing, trying a new sport, laughing with your children or your friends. Anything that brings you joy without needing to have an achievement or achieve something through that is a part of play. Now, the power of learning something new challenges your brain. It's called neuroplasticity. Every time we challenge ourselves with something unfamiliar, whether it's learning a language, which I can tell you from trying to learn French, that has really, really challenged my brain, taking up photography or a new hobby, playing a musical instrument, trying reformer Pilates or something new, we create new neural pathways. Research shows that lifelong learning is associated with better memory, improved cognitive function, greater confidence, reduced dementia risk, and most importantly, it reminds us that we're still growing, and no matter what our age, we can always learn. Now, another part of play is our friendships. And this probably won't surprise regular listeners after my recent episode that I've done on connection, but friendships do far more for you than you realize. Research from the Harvard Study of Adult Development, which is the longest running study on happiness and health, found that the quality of our relationships is one of the strongest predictors of how healthy and happy we'll be as we age. Strong relationships are associated with lower rates of depression, better heart health, lower stress hormones, improved immunity, longer life, better memory, and friendships don't just make life better, they actually help us live longer. So it's time to invest in some of those friendships. Give a friend a call, meet up for a walk, organize a catch-up, a dinner, whatever it is. Start to reach out and maybe rekindle some of those lost friendships. Now, another thing to think about is nature. Think about how you feel when you walk through a forest or sitting beside an ocean. I know automatically when I'm walking through a forest, I feel calmer, more relaxed. I take in all the sounds. It may be the trees rustling, the birds. you tune into those small sounds, and all of that together helps to lower stress levels. And there are so many studies now that support that when you spend time in nature, we lower our stress hormones, our cortisol goes down, we reduce blood pressure, we improve mood, and it even supports your immune function. Nature helps us to slow down. It reminds us to breathe, create that feeling of awe, and allow us to drop back into that parasympathetic state, that rest and digest state, where we feel safe and happy, where we are best supporting our health. Travel is also another beautiful example of potential play. Yes, it can be fun. It's incredibly healthy. Travel exposes us to new cultures, new foods, new people, new languages. All of this helps to stimulate the brain, and research suggests that novelty supports neuroplasticity and creates richer, stronger memories. So that's why holidays often feel longer in hindsight than general everyday life. Our brains remember that novelty, they remember the emotions and the adventure, and we often have our memories tied to a smell or a song or a food. So it's part of one of the reasons why I love running retreats. People say, oh, I loved it. The Pilates was amazing, or the food was delicious. But what people remember most from going on those retreats are the connections, the laughing with people, making new friendships, having deep conversations that they haven't had with people for a long time, seeing new destinations with people, experiencing it together cements that as a memory, a very amazing, precious memory. Having that time to think, rest, and really help people feel like themselves again. That's what retreats create. They bring people together and allow them to think about those forgotten parts of health, the nature, the learning, the connection, the adventure, the play. We are able to take time out from our everyday responsibilities and, perhaps most importantly, find some perspective. Sometimes you need to step away from your normal environment to remember that you are enough, and sometimes it's just finding ways that we can take things off our plate, but we need to step away to be able to see that and get that bigger picture. Now, another part of play, which I find, is that a lot of women don't want to lean into the play. They lean into thinking that they need more discipline. They think that they need that habit tracker or a supplement or a productivity app, and that they also need to get permission to have fun, to laugh, to go on that trip, to take that art class, to say yes to something new. So my challenge to you this week is to ask yourself a simple question. What did I love doing before life got so busy? That could be anything. Singing, swimming, cooking, walking with a friend. Maybe it was simply sitting outside with a cup of tea. Then I want you to ask yourself, how can I bring a little piece of this back into my life this week? Not next year or next month or when life slows down, because it never does, this week. Because health isn't just built in the gym or in the kitchen. It's built in the laughter, the friendships, the adventure, the purpose, the joy, and the play. And as we wrap up this episode, if it's reminded you of something you've forgotten or inspired you to say yes to something you've been putting off, I would absolutely love to hear from you. Send me a message on Instagram and tell me what's one thing you're bringing back into your life. Because who knows, your answer may inspire somebody else to do the same. And if you've enjoyed this episode, I'd love for you to share it with a friend. Maybe it's a friend you've been meaning to catch up with. And perhaps this week, instead of texting each other, you can go for a walk, book that coffee or take that class, and share a podcast episode. and maybe even start dreaming about that retreat you've been talking yourself out of. Because sometimes the healthiest thing we can do is to remember how to truly live and what brings us joy. And if you'd like to join me on one of our retreats, we have our Pilates by the Mekong retreat coming up in October. So I'll put the link in the show notes. Head across there to check it out and join us. Thanks so much for joining me on today's podcast episode. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again next week on the podcast.